This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, from Erie to Philadelphia and from Pittsburgh to Scranton, it's Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenawalt. I'm the Senior Fellow of the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. I'm joined by my co-host, Mara Donnelly. Mara, welcome.
Hello, Charlie.
Well, Mara, we've seen quite a few interesting developments in state government at the end of the spring and beginning of the summer. Looks like we're going to have a different head of the Pennsylvania State Police. Marcus Brown was turned down by the Pennsylvania Senate. That's
the latest news, yeah. And we'll have to see what happens there.
So I guess you have to be careful which uniform you wear.
Yes, apparently.
Well, it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you, too.
Well, we have a very special guest with us today. We have Mr. George Ellis, who's president of the Pennsylvania Coal Alliance. George, welcome to the show.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you for asking me.
It's welcome. We're so glad to have you here. And you are the president of the Pennsylvania Coal Alliance. Well, exactly. Why don't you tell us a little bit first, to share with our viewers again what the Coal Alliance is, what it does, what your job is as president, George.
We're a lobbying organization for the bituminous coal mining industry in Pennsylvania. We represent the bituminous coal operators and a number of companies whose businesses rely on a thriving coal economy. And chiefly, we're their advocates in Harrisburg. And my role in particular is to handle legislative and regulatory oversight on issues that pertain to coal mining, coal use, and it's been a challenge these last couple of years. But I strongly believe in the coal industry. I believe in the societal benefits that it provides, and we've had challenges before, and we've come out of it. And I'm very optimistic that we'll come out of this one too.
Mm-hmm. Mara?
Well, we've talked before when we've had you on about those economic benefits for Pennsylvania, and there's a significant number of jobs. They're well-paying jobs. You want to tell, refresh us a little bit on some of that?
We'll do.
Those stats.
Yes, we're the fourth largest coal-producing state. We mine bituminous coal around 58 to 60 million tons a year, and then there's anthracite coal in the northeastern section of the state that produces another 10 million. Our workforce, direct and indirect, exceeds 36,000 employees. They are among the highest industrial paid employees in the state, and they certainly earn it. They make on average around $85,000 a year. And in the local coal communities, they are both the social and economic fabric there, and so our direct and indirect benefits to the state total about over $4 billion a year, and so we still drive the economic engine in Pennsylvania. We still help drive it, particularly with respect to electricity. 40% of Pennsylvania's electricity comes from coal. That has allowed us to have competitive electric rates, reliable supplies of electricity, and avoided the spikes and brownouts that you've seen in other regions of the country. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, at one time in the 19th century, coal was criticized for being dirty, the way that it was, processed and the way that it was burned.
Right.
But today, George, we have a whole array, do we not, of clean coal technologies that make the use of coal much different than it was in the past.
I think one of the startling statistics that I've come across recently is since the 1970s, when the spirit of the times developed an environmental conscience, and we realized environmentally what we had to provide to continue coal mining, and there was the plethora of laws and regulations governing air quality standards, so to speak. There were criteria pollutants that the feds referred to, and this includes sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, carbon monoxide, lead, ozone. And with the advent of those regs in the 70s, since 1970 until today, we have reduced criteria pollutants by 88%,
wow.
which is I think a singular accomplishment, but accomplishment nevertheless that we were obligated to make. So,
well, I know that in Pennsylvania, a lot of energy sources are getting a lot more attention these days.
Right.
I'm sure you don't mind in some regards, but you're really the focus of attention a lot on the federal level right now.
Right.
There are the Clean Power Plan, which is going to be devastating to the coal industry in Pennsylvania. And I know we've talked about it before, but can you give us an update on where that stands
Sure.
and what your organization is doing now on the federal level?
Sure.
And what it is.
Yeah.
Right. First, let me say this: we welcome competition. We believe that a diversified electric mix is for the benefit of everybody. Our concern, though, or what drives us, is that mix be competitive. So each resource compete on its own merits, but diversity is good. But the Clean Energy Plan was proposed by the President in June of 2014, and its intent is to tighten emissions of carbon dioxide. For Pennsylvania, we would be required to reduce our CO2 emissions by 32% by 2030, beyond what the levels were in 2012. So
wow.
it's a very draconian regulation for coal, particularly given the fact that the technology, the technology is there for these other criteria pollutants that we've been able to use. The technology is still maybe 5 to 10 years away for carbon dioxide, so it will significantly impact coal. We expect a final rule to be published sometime in August or September by EPA. At that point, the state will have 1 year to develop a compliance plan, a plan that it meets the EPA parameters submitted to EPA, and so that's the status. We've met as an organization with the key members of the administration who were responsible for developing the plan, just to let them know our concerns. And
Did they care?
What we've heard so far were the right things, but
an acknowledgement of how devastating it would be to Pennsylvania.
Right.
Yeah.
But the devil's in the details, Mara. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
You trust everyone but cut the cards.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay.
We haven't seen anything yet. No
Yeah.
action has been taken because we're still waiting for the rules. But I think
there's a lot going on, though, that people are not waiting for the rules. Is that correct? There's a lot of activity. Lawsuits are being filed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There is a federal lawsuit. Well, there are a couple of federal lawsuits right now on the constitutionality of the proposal. Unfortunately, though, I don't anticipate that to close.
It takes a long time
before the rig is open. What we're trying to do is just educate the legislators and the administration on not only how this will hit the coal, the local communities, the economic impact, but the effect it will have on the price and reliability of electricity. Frankly, this is an overreach. We believe it's an overreach by the federal government, by the Obama administration in particular, to try and use, under the guise of an environmental regulation, an energy strategy that shifts the use of energy away from fossil fuels. And this country is not ready for it. The world is not ready for it. We're hugely dependent on fossil fuels to heat our homes, to heat our businesses, to meet our transportation needs. And if you do this transformation without addressing those needs in the interim, what you're going to see is precipitous increases in electric rates, and you're going to see the lights going out in places in America too.
Yeah.
George, what stymies me is what the administration is trying to do is legislate through executive orders. Precisely. And law supersedes executive orders. So it would be, I guess, I wonder how what's going on with the coal industry in the Congress and how the Congress is responding to your needs, and doesn't the Congress realize our own energy needs for the future?
Congress,
apparently, right. Electricity, but about 48% of our total electric supply is provided by coal.
Right. I think Congress is pretty much sympathetic to us, but
are they waiting too?
Well, there's not much they can do. I mean, it's being
they can
being
pass
litigated.
Legislation, I guess, well, but then the president can veto it. I guess
the president can veto it, and we've been. I think the House has been particularly responsible to our needs and has passed legislation. Mm-hmm. Politically, it's it just doesn't meet the Senate standards. One of the things you have to understand is as coal use is shrinking, our geographical reach shrinks also. So although coal is burned in 24, 25 states, it's not as central as it is in Pennsylvania, Kentucky, or West Virginia for these other states.
So we're unique when it comes to the impact that
we're very unique. Yeah. First of all, we're probably the most diverse coal-producing state, among all the coal-producing states. And second, we have the structure in place. Pennsylvania has uniquely built their power plants right at the mouth of the mine, Mine place and things like that. So, but that whole structure could crumble, and we've already seen because of not only the Clean Power Plan or the proposed Clean Power Plan, but the Mercury rule, about 5,600 megawatts of electric generation power plants have been prematurely retired in Pennsylvania. Now, as a frame of reference, that's about a quarter of coal's total coal capacity. So it's happening now. The effects are happening now.
Sounds like this is going to be an ongoing issue for us to stay on top of, Charlie.
Absolutely, yeah. Maura. And when you have, as you said, George, there are 36,000 individuals employed in the industry with an average salary of over $80,000 per year. Those are good jobs. And the fact that 1/4 of the industry has been closed, you just wonder where the other what energy supply will pick up the remainder.
Right.
So we want to thank you very much for coming today. We've just started to ask you all the questions that Maura and I have, so you have to come back again very soon.
I would love to come back. I appreciate you having me, and you've always been fair. So
well, it's an important topic, and coal is a very important part of our energy picture, and we can't deny it.
I appreciate that, Charlie.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be back with the second segment of Behind the Headlines right after this.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, helping hospitals provide healing, health, and hope to communities across the state. And by the Pennsylvania Business Council, envisioning a commonwealth in which residents enjoy a very high quality of life in sustainable communities. The council works aggressively to define key long-term policy strategies and solutions to make the commonwealth more competitive, creating and sustaining a better Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation, and by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by Daily Express, transporting construction, farm, and industrial equipment throughout the United States, and by Blackford Ventures, LLC, a private equity firm seeking to make significant investments in real estate, proven business enterprises, and their leaders. Find out more at www.blackfordventures.com. And by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Visit pahighwayinfo.org.
Hi, welcome back to Behind the Headlines. Well, in our first segment, Maura and I were looking at coal and the coal industry in Pennsylvania. In this segment, let's take a look at natural gas, Maura.
It's one of our hottest issues.
Absolutely, particularly here in Pennsylvania. And to do that, we have a very special guest with us today. We have Stephanie Catarino Wissman, who is the Executive Director of API, the Associated Petroleum Industries of Pennsylvania. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. So great to be here,
Your
Charlie.
first
Maura.
time, I believe, right?
Yes, it is my first time.
Very nice to have you.
It's nice to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Could you tell our viewers a little bit about API?
Sure.
And what you do?
Sure. The Associated Petroleum Industries of Pennsylvania is a division of the American Petroleum Institute. We're the only national trade association that represents all aspects of the oil and natural gas industry. So we have a presence, our headquarters is in Washington, D.C., with a presence in 34 states, including Pennsylvania. We have an office in Houston, Texas, dealing primarily with offshore issues, offshore drilling issues, as well as having offices around the world in Singapore, Dubai, Beijing, and Rio de Janeiro. And in addition to
Do you get
being...
to go to any of those places?
I wish. When we opened up the Rio de Janeiro office, I was one of the
You were
first ones to
offered.
volunteer, but they didn't choose me, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I know, that's what I said, too. And in addition to being an advocacy organization on behalf of our members, we're also a standard-setting organization. And what that represents is industry's collective wisdom on everything from drill bits to environmental protection standards to sound engineering practices, and making sure you have safe interchangeable use of equipment regarding oil and natural gas operations. And what this means is API has been the leader in the development of the petroleum and petrochemical equipment operating standards for over 90 years. So you take a look at an API standard, about 300 of those, we maintain about 650. About 300 of those are incorporated by reference into state, federal, and international regulations.
Wow. Well, our new governor has been keeping you a little bit busy here in Pennsylvania.
Very busy.
Some new rumors of proposals of tax increases, and I think we want to get your gut reaction to that, and then we're going to talk about some recent information that came out about it.
We're very disappointed in the policy that Governor Wolf has proposed in regard to energy taxes. While it's no surprise, part of his campaign was based on instituting a severance tax on the natural gas industry. So while no surprise, it's still disappointing. And we are very, very concerned not only for his proposal, what he has actually put forth, but the other severance tax proposals that are floating around the legislature.
Well, it's interesting because here in June, we find that the EPA issued a report, the results of long-running studies, I should say, that said that, oh my goodness, fracking didn't seem to produce any bad environmental effects after all. And interesting, that report was released on a Thursday or a Friday.
Yes.
It kind of gets lost during the weekend news, doesn't it? But we wondered what your reaction was to that. But in addition to that report, there's another report that you'd like to talk about that has recently been released in regard to the gas industry in Pennsylvania. I was wondering if you could talk about both of those items.
Sure, happy to. The EPA study that just came out really validates what we've been saying all along, that the process of hydraulic fracturing, there is no evidence that that contaminates groundwater or drinking water, if you will. And hydraulic fracturing has been done for over 65 years. Now, what's the newer component of that is the combination of hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling, which is how oil and gas producers, are able to tap into those shale formations that reside a mile or more beneath the Earth's surface. So no surprise and welcome news as far as we're concerned.
Helpful.
Helpful,
Yeah.
absolutely helpful.
And the recent study that you had a role in, or at least were instrumental in having happen, actually deals with the economic impact of Marcellus Shale in Pennsylvania and the impact that the new taxes would have.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about the governor's proposal and what you found about that with your study.
I'd like to highlight the governor's proposal, if I may, first. Governor Wolf has put forth a plan that would propose to institute a 5% severance tax on the market value of the gas coming out of the ground. And then he also has an additional proposal that would put into place a 4.7 cents per 1,000 cubic foot of gas that is extracted from the earth. So really it's a double tax. It is on the value and the volume of the natural gas that is produced. But in addition to that, I'm sure you've heard Governor Wolf touting that he wants to raise $1 billion for education. He's going to do that on the backs of the natural gas industry. Well, he quickly realized that with the natural gas prices as they are right now, very depressed, there's no way he would ever be able to raise that kind of money. So what he has now proposed is an artificial floor to get to that number. And even with the artificial floor, it falls way short of the $1 billion that he has been marketing.
How does the artificial floor work?
Yes, the artificial floor is at $2.97 per 1,000 cubic foot of gas. So what that means is that the producer of the natural gas, even if they are not realizing $2.97 per MCF, they will have to pay taxes on that amount. And this is what I would like to compare it to.
And then it could go up from there. I mean, if they reach that level and produce more, correct?
That's the artificial floor.
That is the floor. Okay,
that's exactly
so that's
right.
the lowest amount they're going to pay,
Yes.
but they could pay more.
Yes.
Okay.
And right now, the natural gas is trading around $1.10, $1.20 or so in Pennsylvania. And that's a huge difference because you have to look at the natural gas trading price in Pennsylvania, not at the Gulf Coast, okay? People are looking at Henry Hub's prices, which are about $1 or so more trading than in Pennsylvania because we have a severe infrastructure challenge here in Pennsylvania. We have a glut of natural gas. We don't have the capacity to get it to the end users. So with this artificial floor, this is what it's akin to. Asking someone who is earning $40,000 a year to pay income taxes on as if you're earning $80,000 a year. So asking this industry to pay taxes on something they are not receiving. In my view, that is the fastest way to drive an industry out of this state.
How did the governor or his staff come up with that artificial floor figure, Stephanie?
They're trying to get to $1 billion.
Well, that's it. That's
was it
exactly
based on
it.
that? Was it based on gas prices elsewhere? How did they tell you how they derived that figure?
They have not told us how they've derived that figure, but I guess they've crunched some numbers and taking a look at different price points, spot markets, and what the price is trading. But again, you don't even get near $1 billion with that. According to our economic impact study, which I'll get into in a moment, you raise maybe $500 million, maybe with the artificial floor. Again, a far cry from $1 billion. But again, take a look as if the industry will not react to some kind of a policy like that, which is really, not very.
It's just puzzling to me that the administration could come out with such a significant proposal. They've only been in office for several months, and then to come out with such a significant proposal that would affect one of our most important industries, it doesn't seem that there'd be enough time to study it to come up with the right figure, Stephanie.
Right, and the artificial floor really is nonsensical. It really is. So how we've reacted to this is that we needed to put more meat on the bone to say that, you know what, there will be economic consequences to a severance tax proposal
Everyone
such
keeps
as this.
saying that, but
yes, and we've been saying
back
this.
that up with something.
Exactly, because what I've told some proponents of a severance tax, they keep saying, well, geez, your member companies are large companies, they can absorb the tax, or the gas is in the ground, your companies aren't going to go anywhere. This is where the resource is. But what we've said is we, Pennsylvania, the Marcellus Shale, the Utica Shale, we are competing with other shale plays in the country as well as around the world. So our companies take a look at where it makes the most economic sense to invest. And when you take a look at Pennsylvania underneath these proposals, definitely not competitive at all. And it definitely would jeopardize the competitive edge that we have currently, not only in this country, but around the world. So we did commission this economic impact study. We felt we had to do this to show the governor, the legislature, and the public that there will be consequences to this type of proposal.
What are the most significant figures? I'm sorry, Mark.
Yeah.
What are the most significant figures from this study?
Sure. 7 key findings, but I will highlight a couple of them that I think your audience would be very interested in. One is the impact on jobs. This study, the economic impact study of a natural gas severance tax in Pennsylvania is what it's titled. And what they found is that by year 2025, you're looking at 18,000 jobs, a reduction in 18,000 jobs supported by the oil and natural gas industry in this state. So forward-looking 10 years, but I'd like to point out the first year alone in 2016, you're looking at 6,000 jobs that would be impacted.
Wow.
Absolutely. Secondly, you take a look at gross state product. When you take a look at the expected and anticipated investment and production losses, look at that cumulatively, and how that will impact Pennsylvania's gross state product is to the tune of $20 billion hit by year 2025. That's something that's alarming and something that citizens of Pennsylvania need to take note of. And let me break it down further on that $20 billion number. What you're looking at is for every $1 of a gain to Pennsylvania because of the enactment of this severance tax, it is the economy, the gross state product of Pennsylvania's economy is set back by over $4. So every $1 gain, you're setting back the economy over $4.
Wow. So let me ask you this. I just have to ask you this. You commissioned the study.
We did.
How, if people say it's got to be biased, you're going to have people saying that to you. It's a biased study. How do you respond to that?
What you have to take a look at is the numbers. You know, simple economics will tell you if you increase the cost of producing a product, you're going to get less of it. So you have to take a look at the economics there. Simple. I mean, that's just simple.
Okay, and as we wrap up here, where can people find this report to read it?
Yes, on our website, which is www.api.org.
Okay, that's great.
Could you repeat that, please?
Sure. www.api.org.
Okay. Stephanie, it's interesting that in light of the EPA study being released here in June, we find that New York State has had a moratorium on fracking for some time, and the area that has the shale formations in New York State is one of the poorest areas and one that could benefit the most economically from that. Now we find that there's more formations in Maryland as well, and they have announced that they're going to perhaps follow New York and have a moratorium as well. Does that bode well for Pennsylvania?
What we have to keep in mind is that Pennsylvania is competing against not only other states but around the world. So while New York, yes, I guess what I would say is this: we're in competition around the world with shale plays and states for natural gas production such as Wyoming, West Canada, the Gulf Coast. But what I will say, the fact that our neighboring state is limiting this issue, the limited impact they have there, I would say Pennsylvania has more of a chance of attracting and retaining good talent in the energy sector. And what we've seen is that when you have a job in Pennsylvania in the energy sector, you're more than likely going to stay in Pennsylvania, which helps our competitiveness long term.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, and thank you for being here. Maura and I want to invite you back in the near future because this is not an issue that's going to go away. We will be with you again next week for another edition of Behind the Headlines. Tune in then. We'll see you next week.